Hello, everyone. My name is Gitika Gorthy, and I'm the founder and CEO of Ignited Thinkers. Today, I'm thrilled to host another incredibly exciting STEM chat, and this time with the one and only Mr. Courtney Stadd. Courtney is a thought leader of the aerospace industry who has helped transition the space industry to where it is today. Courtney has held senior policy and program management positions at the U.S. Department of Commerce, the U.S. Department of Transportation, the White House, and has worked directly for these three NASA administrators, including as Chief of Staff and White House Liaison. Courtney is the founder and president of Capital Line Solutions, LLC. I could go all day talking about Courtney's remarkable contributions to the space industry, and you could read more about his incredible experiences down in the description below. But most importantly, Courtney has been my mentor who has helped me found Ignited Thinkers and has been a part of my journey and is also an Ignited Thinkers board member. He is also a partner and HCDA advisor for the Hines Family Foundation. So I'm very excited to learn about Courtney's passion for aerospace, as well as what got him intertwined with the work that the Hines Family Foundation is currently doing. So welcome, Courtney. Thank you so much for taking your time to inspire the next generation of aerospace leaders.
Well, it's a real joy to be here, Chiquita. You know, your passion, enthusiasm for space and for STEM is infectious. So thank you for asking me to participate in this. Let's start, I guess, with how I got motivated to get involved in the whole space domain. Well, combination of factors. One was I grew up in a fairly blue-collar working class background in New York. And space was something early on that grabbed my imagination. It was a way to, if you will, escape from some of the stark realities. Fueling that was my late father, who during World War II, as part of the Army Air Corps, went off after the war to Wright-Patterson, did some early research in the effects of G-forces that had applicability not just to aviation, but to space. So hearing his stories about that research fired my imagination. And then as the American space program took off, I had the real luck of meeting some of my dad's friends who worked at Grumman Corporation in Bethpage, Long Island, who were working on the Apollo module that ultimately landed on the moon. So as a kid, hearing those individuals talk about their passion, their interest, fired my imagination. And then I have to give great credit to the late, great John Glenn, who in 1962 was the first American to orbit the Earth. And there was just something about John Glenn as a hero that resonated with this 8-year-old. And it just became infectious. And I had the real honor of meeting Mr. Glenn many years later and saying, I know millions and millions of people tell you this, but you really did affect my passion, my interest, and my career path in terms of that mission. So he played a big stake. And then I'd say that in 1968, when the movie 2001 Space Odyssey came out, that really fired my imagination. And in fact, arguably, for the last half century, I have been rather upset that a fraction of what was portrayed in the movie, such as habitats on the moon and commercial flights between Earth and Moon, are not a matter of everyday occurrence. And we're still in the planning stages today, although I remain pretty optimistic that we will eventually, certainly your generation will see it. And then ultimately in college, met a professor who really turned me around. He was keenly interested in the future of humanity in space, introduced me to the late, great Dr. Gerard K. O'Neill at Princeton, who his classes, students played a critical role in thinking through the engineering and the technical challenges of large communities of people in space at the Lagrangian points not placed on other planetary surfaces, but in quote unquote free space. And that led us to that professor that I had at college, and I and a few other students, to form the nation's first institute, focus on the interdisciplinary approaches to putting people on a sustained basis into space. And that set me on course to work in the space community for now going on 45 years.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. I'm so glad that you were able to see those role models and, watch that movie that inspired you and kept you going in this industry and led to where you are today. And in this journey, how did you find out about the Hines Family Foundation or meet Mr. John Hines and get involved with the foundation? And what's your current role in the Hines Family Foundation?
Well, I interacted with John when I was at NASA. So John Hines was at Ames Research Center on the West Coast. He really is a pathfinder in the use of CubeSats and research, a lot of it in the biological arena. And I became very enamored with John, his vision, his ability to network with people from leading academic research institutions to industry. His ability, frankly, in the NASA world to procure the resources and funding, no small feat for his projects. So when he retired from NASA, we stayed connected. And when he explained his vision for the Hines Family Foundation, he immediately caught my engagement. And I knew that John had the talent, the skill to do the sort of coalition building that's needed with the type of STEM to workforce vision he had in mind. And in particular, I was taken by his focus on the underserved parts of the student community. I have long felt that the aerospace community was tragically underrepresented by minorities and others in the so-called underserved demographic parts of the country, and that was to the detriment of our country's future. That we needed to figure out a way to harness that incredible intellectual talent out there. And John, I felt, was putting together both the curricula, the alliances that would be able to tap into that potential. So I was very pleased to work with him, and I've done so in sort of an advisory alliance type ally, if you will. He's got a whole group of alliances, and I'm proud to say I'm one of those. And so along the way, I've introduced him to the leadership in charge of STEM at NASA. I have introduced him to people such as yourself, and I thank you. I know that he is so incredibly indebted and grateful to the support he's gotten from you and Ignited Thinkers that you've formed, and to the White House. And I'm very pleased that I was able to introduce him to some leadership at the White House Space Council, and they were very taken by John's vision, and that what he was trying to do really aligned very nicely with where the White House and Vice President Harris are going in terms of connecting STEM to workforce development. That STEM alone is great. It's great to inspire people, but at the end of the day, people have to make a living, and to be able to encourage young people, in this case, underserved communities, to aspire to a whole array of ambitions in data science and manufacturing and quality assurance and all sorts of things that in many cases are related to space. But frankly, if a young person gets inspired and moves into an area that's outside the domain, that's okay too. Doesn't have to be space specific. But at the end of the day, it's really trying to show and role model and demonstrate to young people that there's no reason why they cannot reach out and become the professionals in these different areas that I've alluded to, and many others, and they don't have to be outside looking in. They can actually be part of making this a very exciting world related to space technology. For example, they can be a very active participant in bringing it to life.
Definitely. And in your response, you mentioned an incredibly important point, I believe, which is not just learning the STEM skills, but to be able to apply them in real world context and to get a job or to be able to do something with that knowledge.
Exactly.
Which leads me to my next question of what do you think the Hines Family Foundation logo and theme means to you? And so for everyone who doesn't know, the Hines Family Foundation logo and theme is from STEM to ESTEEM, space motivated learning and training to enable the 21st century workforce. So what does this theme mean to you?
Well, to make sure that the audience understands STEAM: education, science, technology, engineering, entrepreneurship, and management. So it's very all-encompassing. So what it means for me is that you start with laying the foundation with some of these very key disciplines. I mentioned data science as an example, and you build up from that. So if your aspirations are to go into business, you've got a pathway to do that. If you want something a bit more technical, which by the way is not just something as glorified as astrophysics. There is a fundamental need for the equivalent of blue collar technician work in space as well. And there are avenues to seek that through community college, through different certification programs, many of which will be identified, I know, in the coming workshops as part of Space Week in Atlanta, to more rarefied areas in the field of science or education and so forth. So there really is a plethora of opportunities for young people to choose from. It's just making that first leap. And the Hines Family Foundation is intended to help facilitate that leap and make it as easy as possible for that young person to then explore this incredible array of opportunities that the experts that he's been able to harness will lay out for people in early October during Space Week.
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited for October 8th and specifically the in-person events that'll be taking place at Atlanta University Center to be able to go interact with these exhibits, the community colleges and, Georgia Tech and other universities in the area to learn about ways you can get involved in the STEM, non-STEM, STEAM, all of these different like niche, specific jobs and career opportunities in the space sector. I love to think of space as its own little world. So you won't just need rocket scientists. Of course, we need them, but we also need a whole plethora of other careers you would need in the real world. So, anything you can imagine in the real world, you'll need just in the space industry.
You do. And I tell people that we need engineers. They're fundamental physicists, fundamental biochemists, bioengineers, mechanical engineers, etc. Fundamental poets are just as important in their own way. Artists, to be able to communicate the majesty of the cosmos and so forth. So there really is a role for just about anybody who's willing to put the time and the effort, the work. The opportunities are there. You were laying out some of the organizations he's working with, and I thought how typical of John Hines that he's managed to get Mercer University, Georgia Tech, the Georgia Space Grant Consortia, the AOC Data Science Group, and others together. I mean, that again is something I've watched John do so successfully over the decades, and I'm not surprised that he's been so successful this time out. I know you had a question about how industry could be supported.
Yes, that leads perfectly. I think it ties perfectly to the next question of where do you see the Hines Family Foundation going? Because I think they're at a great platform right now to take off and reaching their goals. So where do you see the vision for the Hines Family Foundation, and how can the industry support in helping the Hines Family Foundation reach this vision?
I have to tell you that I think there's no limits to where the Hines Family Foundation can go with this vision. So I look at what's going on in Atlanta during Space Week as really, in many ways, a proof of concept initiative that will take that model, and it's a learning experience, and whatever has to be revised and added and so forth will occur. And then basically take that model and replicate it eventually across the country, because there are underserved communities throughout America that, in my humble opinion, are in desperate need for the sort of outreach that groups like the Hines Family Foundation are offering. To those people in industry who sometimes come to me and express their admiration for John Hines and the Hines Family Foundation, what I say to them is thank you for that admiration. I'm sure John Hines appreciates it, but really more than your admiration, we would like you to step up and become part of the solution. After all, the White House Space Council has recently recognized the importance of the Hines Family Foundation as part of a list of groups that are trying to link STEM and workforce. Now it's up to you in industry to ensure the foundation has the resources to carry out this very, very important work over the long run, because frankly, nothing less than the future of our young people is at stake. So that's and that contribution can take the form of direct funding as well as in kind, making some of your experts available for volunteer support for some of these outreach efforts by the foundation, as an example.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think the words you said is be a part of the solution. I think it's great to sometimes be on the outside and to be admiring someone's work, but to get your feet dirty and to be like, I'm going to support, whether that be through donations or your time, or just even a Zoom call to like talk about the same vision that your organization may have with theirs, just talking about what you can do together to collaborate towards common initiatives you may have can go such a long way. So just getting into action and being a part of the solution, I think, is key to this. So thank you so much, Courtney, for taking your
Pleasure.
time to give a
Thank you.
glimpse of what got you into space, as well as what you're doing with the Hines Family Foundation.
It's been an honor. Thank you very, very much.